Welcome back, everybody. So we've talked a little bit about just what an analysis is in general, that process of taking something apart, looking at the components and seeing how they work together. When we get into a literary analysis, the question becomes, how do we do that? So, is it a waste of time? Some of you are saying yes, some of you are nodding. I know, I can tell. The thing is, no, as I mentioned in the analysis video, it is simply an exercise. So the reason that we're doing an analysis, both the literary and rhetorical analysis, is to practice close reading skills, to pay attention to what we're reading, and also to work on our analytical skills. So, let's look at the literary analysis in particular. And some of you have done this before, and that's fine. Hopefully this is a review. But much like my analogy of building a house, I think that we often assume that you all know how to do it. And if I cover it in a video lecture or in class, then I know that we've talked about it. And I know that I can rest easy knowing that we're on the same page. So, when it comes to a literary analysis specifically, we're looking for common themes, we're explaining connections between things, and we're really avoiding summary. And we saw that in the analysis video. We're revealing something that has been hidden, and we're explaining our unique perspective on a topic. Now, caveat there with the last one is in a literary analysis, rhetorical analysis, we're avoiding using that first person pronoun, I or me. What we're trying to do is explain what we see as the meaning, but with a little bit of a remove. And we'll talk about that a little bit more if you're interested. I would also say that when it comes to an analysis, there are various interpretations. There are poems that have been interpreted vastly different ways. Good example is one by Robert Frost, and a lot of people know is sort of the idea of the path less traveled, which I would say is vastly misinterpreted. I'm not going to go into details on it because I don't want to bore you. So before we begin, and this goes back to some other things we talked about in terms of plagiarism, is that you're not going to be using any outside sources for your literary analysis. You're going to focus just on the page, which means there's no right or wrong answer. There are various interpretations, just like the Robert Frost example. What I've done to mitigate that or prevent the tendency towards either plagiarism or using outside sources is that I've actually removed the title and the author from those texts. Just know that part of that is because I want the work to be your own. Trust yourself to figure out what a story is about. You're more than capable of doing it. I'm confident in that. So don't use any of those things. No outside sources. Use your own brain. So let's look at kind of some examples of a literary analysis. Now, a lot of us are familiar with the little engine that could, and we'll do sort of in-class exercise as well with a different kids book. But the important thing is that kids books, I'm not doing this to insult your intelligence. It's because kids books make it very easy to identify a theme. So if you don't know the sort of the story of the little engine that could, a train breaks down. It's carrying a bunch of toys, and those toys are now stranded because the train broke down, and a bunch of trains pass by. And they're either too shiny or too big or too whatever that they don't want to help. And along comes, of course, a small, weak train, and it stops to help. And people are not sure if it's going to be able to make it up over this mountain, but using the power of positive self-talk, the little engine makes it to the top, gets the toys delivered. Now, if we were to sort of unpack that and even ask a kid, ask a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, what's the message? What's the moral or the theme of the story? Most of them can pick up the fact that it's about believing in yourself or perseverance, something along those lines. What we have to differentiate between is the theme, which is more like a moral. What does it mean? Versus summarizing. What we have here in these first 4 points is simply the summary. By looking at those component parts and analyzing them, we can see what the meaning is, that the train succeeds because it believes in itself. So when we think about the moral of a story, it's the meaning. And a lot of fables and parables and kids' stories do this. There are some, of course, novels and things that do this. Is relatively common. But let's look at another example. And again, similar, not to insult your intelligence, but Moana happens to be one of my favorite Disney movies, along with Encanto. Is that Disney? I don't know. Kids movies, right? Because I have kids, and it's because of the message in those 2 movies. But we'll just focus on Moana here. So if you're not familiar, Moana is a princess on a Hawaiian island. She really wants to help her people. She sets out to find a better place for them, and she's sort of a born leader, and she succeeds. Now, what's the moral of the story there? Success? Perseverance? It's probably going to be something more like the little engine that could. Somebody who believes in themselves and believes that they can succeed and finds themselves, right? Through bravery and courage and doing what she's been told that she shouldn't or couldn't do, at the beginning of the story. So when we look at the examples, so the first 2 actual literary examples that we're going to look at will be more complex than this. Now, we'll do a couple exercises in class that will help us begin to identify morals and meanings and themes and things like that. When it comes to literary analysis, as I said, and I'll say it probably a bunch more times, there is no single right answer. I'm not looking for a specific thing. There's no right interpretation. When you're doing a literary analysis, confusion is good. It means that we can ask questions and we can begin to try to find meaning. What we can do, much like if I went back to the little engine that could and I was trying to convey or analyze or uncover the meaning with my 3-year-old, I could say, well, why do you think that happened? Why did all the other trains pass by? Why did people doubt the little engine? Why did the little engine succeed? As we ask those questions and maybe even struggle to find an answer, we're working towards that analysis. What we're doing is an analysis in order to find the answer. So as you read, my suggestions are keep an eye on characters. Who's in the story? What do we know about them? Pay attention to symbols. And symbols can be a number of things. Symbols could be a word, a phrase, an image, whatever it is, right? Why is that there? Writers don't usually just throw things in for giggles. Usually there's a reason for it. Pay attention to character motivations and conflict. Why is the character doing what they're doing? What is the conflict? What's in the way? And try to figure out in a 1-sentence explanation the moral or the major theme of the story. Now, I'll just end kind of here because I think I've talked about this quite a bit already with the analysis video. But how do these things transfer? Well, we're doing this type of synthesis or analysis on a daily basis. I'm going to actually stick with this slide. So whatever you're doing, that ability to ask questions and address confusion and be at least a little bit comfortable with that confusion is going to help you. because most jobs require you to solve problems on a near daily basis, if not on a daily basis. All right, so I'll go ahead and end there. If you have questions, comments, concerns, jokes, memes, or recipes, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll talk to you all later.